in general, most of us kind of navigate our way through our lives with attachment, anger, and ignorance. And in some ways, we can find some kind of relief using those kinds of oars. But it's, on the other hand, it's a little clumsy, and we oftentimes find ourselves just struggling and resisting. You know, we suffer with change and our resistance to impermanence. And in the end, even we struggle with that, we discover we have no choice but to basically accept what comes. So maybe there's a way, you know, a path to make that just a little smoother if we have some kind of, not just theoretical understanding, but a kind of experiential understanding in regard to resistance, how it comes, how we can with that. So, I mean, I do a lot of courses, you know, related to this particular subject, but in the context of the today's discussion, I thought it might be interesting if there's time. I don't know, but I don't want to take up too much time. But to just discuss a little bit about how the level upon which we are addressing this subject of resistance. So, because sometimes we talk about resistance as if it were like a mental configuration, just some kind of a decision about what it is that fits and what doesn't fit. But actually, there's this kind of constant pushing and pulling in regard to what we like and what we don't like. And we discover that it's not just something mental, but it's like very energetic. It's something very tangible, something that's working like within the body itself. And these resistance, you know, manifests like kind of like walls of acceptance and rejection. And so we become burdened, you know, with choices connected to what we like and what we don't like. And instead of relaxing, we get more stressed. You know, just relaxation and the release that we're looking for, it's not really based on having the freedom to choose one thing over another. But as strange as it may seem, you know, there's this kind of, we discover there's this kind of narrow passageway in which there's like no exit, in which, you know, freedom is no longer like a choice as much as it is a kind of inescapable imperative. Now, what I mean by that is like, as long as we have acceptance and rejection and resistance, we feel we have a lot of like choices, choosing one thing over another thing. But ultimately, that kind of freedom is just a little bit exaggerated. And the only way we can actually access a method that's really going to give us some kind of knowledge is by learning, following, and disciplining ourselves in accepting that which is inescapable for us. that means we have to face the fact that there's no exit from our karmic circumstance. And we have to kind of start with that condition. So I don't know, you want me to go on with more, or?
Well, yes, I definitely want to hear more about that. It's fascinating. So yeah, when you bring up the idea of freedom and choice in relation to our mental and our tensions that express energetically and then express somatically in our bodies, but you frame it in terms of freedom, and that's very interesting to me, because in the medical and spiritual traditions, whether it's Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine or different traditions, many times we see like the definition of happiness is actually defined as like free movement and uninhibited mobility. So freedom is understood to be very intrinsic for being happy.
Yeah, just quite the opposite. Yeah, this is a good point, Adam, because it's just quite the opposite. As long as we accept this kind of having a multiplicity of choices, it just means that we want to follow the path of resistance, acceptance, and rejection. Choose one thing over another. And that's not where freedom really lies, strangely enough. It begins with understanding the inevitability of the circumstance that we are in right now, each one of us in our own individual place, of course, and all those circumstances may vary to one degree or another, but the imperative is the same. It means recognizing that there is no real exit from that. There's no real kind of escape.